Chapter 28. Time Beyond Us. How memory travels without our witness. There is a point in life when what we have carried, shaped, or nurtured no longer belongs to us alone. The instant a word is spoken, a gesture made, or a habit shared, it begins its own quiet journey. It moves beyond our reach, often in directions we will never see. We may not know who will receive it, how it will be held, or in what form it will appear again. This is not disappearance, and it is not failure. It is the moment of release, the acceptance that memory has its own roots through time, often invisible to the one who set them in motion. Over time, every person becomes an unseen influence in the lives of others. A sentence spoken in passing may stay with someone for decades. A small kindness, offered without expecting anything in return, may take root in another life as the courage to act differently. Even a mistake, when faced openly and carried with humility, can leave behind a trace of resilience in someone else. These impressions travel beyond the limits of our own witness, moving through years, across generations, into cultures and situations we could never have imagined. In the Ghost movement, this reality is met with quiet trust, rather than the pressure to control. We are not the sole keepers of what we have lived. Once released, our presence becomes part of the wider weave of human memory, travelling along threads we cannot see. This is how presence outlives us, finding its way into lives and places that will never know our name. To accept this is to let go of the need for recognition, to loosen our grip on the outcome, and to stop measuring our worth by the visible results of what we have offered. Our part is to live with care and attention now, to plant what matters with sincerity, and then to step back, trusting that time and others will carry it onwards in their own way. Memory is not an object that stays still, waiting on a shelf for us to return to it. It is a living current, passed from hand to hand, voice to voice, gesture to gesture, often without the origin being known. Once something leaves us, it begins to shift. It adjusts to the needs, beliefs, and conditions of those who hold it next. A phrase can survive its speaker by centuries, changing subtly as it is repeated in different mouths. A way of working with the hands, learned through quiet observation rather than formal instruction, can pass down through decades of unspoken teaching. These inheritances are rarely exact copies. They shed parts of their first form, pick up new elements, and gain new meanings. This is why memory cannot be owned in the way we sometimes wish. It will not remain fixed. Once it begins to travel, it is reshaped not because it is neglected, but because it is alive. It belongs to the future as much as it belongs to the past. In the Ghosts movement, the value of what we pass on is not measured by how closely it survives to its original form. Preservation is not the only measure of worth. The deeper question is whether it continues to resonate. If something of our present still moves within another life, even if its shape is unfamiliar to us, then it has done its work. Knowing this, we can shift from guarding memory to releasing it. We can stop trying to control the exact way our presence will be remembered, and focus instead on living, so that what we offer is worth carrying forward in any form. The form will change, but if the essence is true, it will endure. When we speak of memory travelling beyond us, we are not speaking only of thoughts, words, or stories. Memory is also carried in bodies, in spaces, in patterns of movement. A child may tilt their head in thought in the exact way a grandparent once did, without knowing where the gesture began. A friend may hum a melody you once sang, altered over time, but still warmed by the feeling of when it was first shared. A neighbour you once helped might go on to offer the same quiet support to someone else, without connecting it back to you. These are the subtle traces that keep us alive in the memory field of others, long after our own presence has gone. Places also carry these echoes. A chair worn smooth by years of sitting, the scent of a spice that recalls a kitchen now silent, the way a path curves where your feet once passed. All of these are forms of memory without labels. They do not announce themselves, yet they remain, ready to be encountered by someone who will feel them without knowing why. Even sound plays its part. The rhythm of pages turning in a certain way, the footstep on a wooden floor that sounds exactly like yours once did, or the tone of a laugh remembered more for the way it filled a room than for its exact pitch. these fragments are stitched quietly into the fabric of other lives. In the Ghosts movement, embodiment is not simply about the memory we keep for ourselves. It is about what we transmit. Our ways of moving, our manner of speaking, our gestures in moments of care or difficulty, all of these form an unspoken inheritance. Because they live in people and not just in objects, they can travel far further than we ever could in person, crossing into other lives, places and times. If memory continues through people, places and gestures long after we are gone, the question becomes not, how will we be remembered, but what traces are we leaving in the first place? This is not about managing how we are seen, but about shaping our presence so that what moves forward is steady, human and worthwhile. Sometimes this means paying attention to the smallest consistencies, the way we greet others, the tone we use when under pressure, the way we care for spaces that are shared. These are remembered not because they are grand, but because they become part of the daily weave of life. We can also share stories, skills and practices as gifts rather than instructions, giving them freely so they can take root where they will. They may return in ways we do not expect, perhaps carried by someone who never knew us directly. It also means creating space for others to make their own mark. When we step aside to let someone else's approach, voice or rhythm take the lead, we allow the flow of presence to extend beyond us. That generosity is part of the memory we leave, and we can learn to live without knowing exactly where our influence will land. The ripple of a kind word, the echo of a shared moment, the trace of how we move through the world, these are beyond measurement. Trusting their path frees us from the burden of watching for results. Over time, the tone of our presence, whether it is steadiness, warmth, honesty, or curiosity, becomes the thing that travels furthest. It is what lingers when the details have been forgotten. It is the texture people remember when they cannot recall the exact words or actions. A day will come when what we began is held by hands we have never touched, spoken in voices we have never heard. Our presence will move beyond our sight, shaped by people and places we will never meet. This is not something to guard against, but to welcome. It is the way life continues. Memory that travels without us will be altered, softened here, reshaped there, sometimes even erased. Yet what remains will be what was most alive in us, even if it appears in unfamiliar form. The thread will still run quietly through time. In the Ghosts movement, this is not called loss. It is called release. It is the moment when our part of the work is complete and the rest belongs to others. The shape will change, but the pulse will remain, moving through stories, gestures, and moments that carry something of us far beyond our own time. We do not need to follow it to the end. We need only to live now so that what travels onwards carries the essence of who we are and the care we tried to keep alive. That is enough. And as memory continues on its own course, we begin to sense the wider pattern, how what leaves us is already meeting what is yet to come, how the traces we send forward may one day return in forms we do not recognize. It is here in this quiet exchange between past, present, and what has not yet arrived that the next chapter begins.